So I have to tell you, I feel a little nervous. I'm interviewing a famous movie star, but she's promised that she'll be gentle. But I think the important part here is that we could talk about her movies and about the clothes you like to wear, but we could have a much more serious conversation, which I think is what we both want to do. Matt mentioned there's 17 million kids in the United States. That's 1 out of 5 under the age of 18 who have a mental health disorder. So that means that every one of you knows and loves one of these kids. So if it's not your child, it's your niece or nephew, or it's your best friend's child, or it's your friend, your son or daughter's best friend. So we as a nation have an obligation to really start paying attention to these children to make sure that they get identified, they get treatment that works, and they get to live the lives that they can and are capable of living. So why don't we start at the beginning? Tell me about when you were a little girl. Where did you grow up? What was your family like?
I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and my family, I mean, a lot of them are here today, are wonderful. And should I get into this
Well, I want to
story?
know, but before you get there, what kind of little girl were you? Were you shy? Were you assertive?
No, not at the beginning, I would say, and Mom, you can yell out at me if I'm wrong, but I would say at the beginning from, very small, I was very serious as a baby and toddler, and didn't really laugh or smile much and took everything in a really intense way, my jail yard stare. And then I was a performer. I was kind of rambunctious and excitable and loved to sing and dance up until I was about 7.
So let's stick a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Do you remember your kindergarten teacher's name?
Yeah, Mrs. Yakum. Yeah.
You're cheating.
Yeah, but I have to. I'm talking about anxiety on a big stage, like I'm terrified.
Okay.
Let me look at my mom.
What was school like? Was it easy to go to? Did you look forward to it?
Oh,
or were you
God.
one of these kids who Monday morning or Sunday night, you got stomach aches and you didn't?
Well, you got to let me get into the 7-year-old part
Okay.
to explain school.
Go ahead.
Because I read really early. I really loved to read, and I was very interested in learning. I still am very interested in learning. But when I hit first grade, the summer before first grade, was it?
I didn't know what you were going to say.
The panic.
No, I think it was after.
Okay, after first grade, before I went into second grade, I had my first panic attack. And it was really, really terrifying and overwhelming. And 7 years old, it's...
Describe it to us.
I was sitting I was at a friend's house. I was over at a friend's house, and all of a sudden, I was absolutely convinced the house was on fire and it was burning down. I was just sitting in her bedroom, and obviously the house wasn't on fire, but there was nothing in me that didn't think we were going to die. And so I called my mom, and I was just, it was panic, but I of course didn't know that. And she came and picked me up, and then it just kept going for the next 2 years.
But a sense of panic or a sense of thoughts of worry, well, because panic attacks usually are a physical sensation that's real, but it's not caused by an organic purpose.
Exactly.
So it's not your heart is not functioning, but you feel maybe that you're going to have a heart attack or you can't breathe.
Yes.
So what was it like? So second grade, could you attend school?
I could attend school, but I went to the nurse every single day at lunch, and I would say that I was sick and I needed to go home and I needed to call my mom. And she could tell by the fact that and I still do it to this day, that I was wringing my hands every time that I told her that I didn't really have a stomach bug and needed to go home, that I was anxious. And it became I couldn't go to friends' houses. I had deep separation anxiety with my mom, and as you can see, it's gotten better, I swear. There's going to be a fun part of the story. But I was so kind of paranoid about everything, and it got to the point where, if she needed to come help at school, my brother's 2 years younger, I couldn't see her, but I needed to know exactly what the day was going to be, and she would repeat it over and over to me until, thankfully, I had a therapist at that age that said, you're allowed to tell her once, and then you can't say it anymore, because she needs to not constantly rely on you telling her the day. But, I couldn't see her if she was at school, because that would send me into a whole tailspin of my mom is here and I can't go home.
So, the way to think about that is when someone breaks up with someone,
Yeah.
if you live across the hall from them,
Yes.
it's a lot worse than if they would go off to California or London. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
And so when anxious kids know their mom's around, it's worse.
Yeah.
If they say, look, I'm gone for the whole day, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So tell me about therapy. So your mom got you therapy after the panic attack?
Yeah, it was a little while, and then it became clear that this was not just a one-time thing, that this was, becoming a pattern, and I'm so grateful that I went to therapy.
So what did the therapist say to you? Did they give you a name for what you were experiencing?
No, well, they gave her a name for what I was experiencing, but she didn't tell me, which I'm also pretty grateful for, that I didn't know I had generalized anxiety disorder and aversion of panic disorder. And that to not hear that as a kid, like you have, this thing, for me, and I think for other kids, again, we're all so, great minds think unalike, the name of it, that, when I have a panic attack or an anxious day, what I need is not necessarily exactly what another person would need. Right. And same as a kid. I mean, some kids in that moment could have used medication and it would have been incredibly helpful, or could have heard what it is that they have and that would have been soothing. I'm very grateful I didn't know that I had a disorder, so to speak, because I think I would have really gone into the kind of, it was at that time especially, there weren't a lot of people that I could look at. I wanted to be an actor, and there weren't a lot of actors that spoke about having panic attacks.
I think being in therapy was maybe even embarrassing or shameful.
Oh, yeah.
It's still hard for a lot of people to talk about it, and we're talking about 20 years ago or 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So did you have a best friend that you talked to about it, or was it silent? You weren't discussing it?
No, I spoke more to my family about it than my friends, because friends at that age, 8-year-olds,
right,
aren't really going to understand that, like, oh no, I can't leave the house because if I do, my mom will die. It's like, it wasn't true,
right.
but that's what I felt, and it was just, nobody really can relate to that, I think, when you're a kid, which is understandable.
So tell us about the therapy. What did the therapist do? Do you remember her name?
Well, childhood Diane. Yes, Diane. And so, childhood therapy is more like you draw a house, you play games. And then what was great was, as it went on, I ended up getting to write a book, and it was called I Am Bigger Than My Anxiety. So it was, like a stapled book where I drew pictures. And that was really helpful. My mom still has it. Just to imagine that thing as an external,
right.
That it's not me, but it is a part of me. And so it's like a little green monster that sits on my shoulder. And whenever I listen to him, he gets bigger and bigger. And when I keep doing what I'm doing, he shrinks and shrinks.
That treatment, by the way, unlike just playing with a child, it's called cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
And it's very effective. We do it today at the Child Mind Institute, where we make sure that a child knows they aren't their anxiety disorder, that there is something separate. It's a monster. You can name it, and if you feed it, it grows. And if you starve it, it will diminish, and it can maybe even go away for a while.
Absolutely.
So that was working? How long did you do that?
I was doing therapy?
Therapy.
I think 2 years. Was it a year? It's hard because when you're little, it feels like I was in it forever, but I think it might have only been a year or a year and a half.
But then you started being able to attend school?
Oh yeah, it was transformative. I ended up moving when I was 15. We truly thought like I wasn't going to be able to move out of the house and move away ever. I would have to be like, how would I go to college? How would I do any of this when I couldn't go to a friend's house for 5 minutes? And so once that happened, and once I could kind of externalize it and get more perspective, which is so hard for children, and I think that's why it's so scary, because everything feels like it's all brand new. Once I understood the perspective on it, things really started moving, and then I started acting at 11, doing improv and theater at a local youth theater, and then I found my people, and I realized that my feelings could be really productive, which any creative person probably can relate to.
So you said in some other interview or some article that improv was something that you really liked, and that it was the antithesis of anxiety.
Right.
So talk to me about that.
Well, it's presence. It's meditative in that way. And so for someone who likes to perform, or that's in me, that combined with absolute presence and needing to listen really intently and use your, I mean, because, and this is just my opinion, I believe that people who have anxiety, depression, are very, very sensitive and very, very smart. Because the world is hard and scary and there's a lot that goes on. And when you're really sensitive and attuned to a lot of that, it can be crippling. And if you don't let it cripple you and you use it for something positive or productive, it's like a superpower. And so with improv, when I learned that I could take all these big feelings and just really listen in the moment and use all of my associative brain that wakes me up still in the middle of the night going, I said this and this, blah, 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 and they're gonna think this and I have to call them in the morning. If I don't, the thing that still haunts me to this day is useful in my job. And I'm so grateful for it.
So how is, improv is really in the moment, correct?
Yeah.
But when you make a movie, they retake the shot again and again. They say, please look a little scared or look a little more anxious. And do you still feel it's in the moment, or it's much more when you're doing improv or Saturday Night Live or?
I mean, Saturday Night Live's my favorite thing.
Well, that's the moment, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely in the moment. But no, I mean, I feel that way at work too. I think that's, I mean, just to speak to, I don't know how many of you are actors or if any of you are actors, but I would imagine in any job, the feeling of making it new every day, even if you're doing the same thing over and over in a different way, you hope that you can make it feel new or that you can approach it differently. And so I guess that's what I've tried to channel, especially as an adult who has a different kind of hold on my disorder, which I never called it, but I guess it is. It's, I am able to sort of channel that in a different way, and it doesn't need to be, improv or something brand new.
Well, stick with me for a second. I love the fact that somewhere you wrote that acting or comedy, that comedy was your sport.
Yeah.
So there's other kids who are playing tennis and football or soccer, and that your sport gave you confidence. Because that's usually what happens to kids, is that playing sports, even if they're not great at school,
Yeah.
they feel the team effort, they feel a mastery of throwing a ball or kicking a ball. Did that happen to you?
Absolutely. I mean, also my brother was a quarterback of the football team, so it was a sporty family. I'm not physical at all. I'm not coordinated in that way. But because...
You played Billie Jean King. Never mind.
Well, yeah, but that's a long story.
That's acting.
That's acting. I definitely felt like it was a sport. And I think that also, in terms of kids that go through this kind of thing, when you're able to find a team or to find people to surround yourself with and have that kind of connection so you don't feel so isolated, it's very healing. And it does really teach you to kind of roll with the punches in a way that...
So I think it's difficult for people to think of someone who's so anxious that they can't get away from their mom for 5 minutes, and yet you were either 11 or 12 years old, and you perform live in Phoenix in Wind in the Willow.
Yes.
Now,
Nice.
help us understand. You have to memorize the script, which you said wouldn't be that difficult because you read early. But how do you feel right before the performance, during the performance, and then after the performance?
Free.
Real.
Yeah.
The anxiety disappears. It's kind of, that monster just poof, it just disappears.
Yeah. For me, it does. Which is why, that's you don't have to be an actor to overcome anxiety. You don't have to be a writer to overcome, you just have to find what that thing is within you that you're drawn to, I think, and have it be presented to you from the world, the opportunity of it.
So what about the critique, the reviews, here you're 11 years old, you're either good or bad, or someone says something harsh about you, you don't look the part, you look, whatever it is, I didn't read the reviews, but did you feel sensitive to the fact that if they didn't applaud enough, or another actor said something to you, like you missed a line or something?
Well, making mistakes is always excruciating for an anxious kid.
Right.
I don't mean to speak for everyone, but I think most
No,
of us
but
are
I'm
afraid
saying
of
that here
making
you
mistakes.
are on the stage, performing mostly every night, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was youth theater was pretty small, and it was very supportive kind of community. This version of my job is now, it feels a little bit different than it did as a kid on stage, in terms of the kind of outside influence or things that I'm able to see or read. But it was It depends. It kind of depends on the day and where I am, how that affects me.
So going back to 11, when did you start getting homeschooled? And did you get homeschooled because of the anxiety, or did you get homeschooled because you were becoming a working actor?
I was homeschooled because I really wanted to do play after play after play, because that's what made me feel the best and the happiest, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do in life. So very kindly, my parents homeschooled me for 7th and 8th grade, and then I went to...
So who did that? A teacher came, or mom learned the curriculum?
No, I did a lot of online curriculum. You can enroll in all of these classes, and at that time you would click a button and it said you were raising your hand in a chat room. And then I would go take tests with other kids that were homeschooled, like standardized tests and things like that.
And did mom and dad both work? What were they doing?
Yeah, I mean, you were home for the most part, and my dad, owned a general contracting company.
So they had full lives.
Yes, yeah.
And so you were independent enough, and did you do well with these online courses?
I think so.
Well,
Yeah.
you got grades.
Yeah,
I'm not going to ask you what the grades were.
Yeah.
But did you feel like you were missing out? Junior high school happens to be a very challenging and also painful time. Most people who treat middle school kids, they hopefully wait until they become high school students before they treat them, because they can be so difficult.
Oh, it's so hard.
And it can be very mean. And
Yeah.
So did you feel you were missing out at all?
No, because again, I was lucky to find that theater.
They
So
were your-
every day I went to rehearsal. Every day I was with people who were like-minded, and we all were excited about similar stuff. So I was socializing daily. I just wasn't socializing with, kids in a public school.
So this is all still local theater.
Yeah.
Are you sleeping out of the house at all?
Yeah, I think I could do sleepovers at
You
that
could do
point.
sleepovers.
Yeah.
Great. So
Sorry, I always look to her. I'm just
Yeah, no,
trying to remember
But-
everything
so
correctly.
We have to send her away. Tell me about...
Send her away,
Right,
it'll
send her
be
away.
okay.
I want to know about this infamous PowerPoint. Were you 15 years old or so, and you decided, or 14, and you decided that you wanted to move to Los Angeles? Now, you live in Phoenix, Arizona, and you make a PowerPoint that I think was called Project Hollywood.
Yep.
And you present this to your mom and dad, and what does it say? And how did you do it?
I just called them into my bedroom and had made this PowerPoint of just a list of reasons why I should move to Los Angeles right now, like right here, right now, in the first semester of my freshman year of high school. And it was, there was music and clip art and
A Madonna song, right?
a Madonna song,
Right.
exactly. This was 15, 16 years ago, so the options were a little more limited. And I just felt this kind of calling, like it was time to go. And they thought about it for a while, and they figured out having me interview with some agencies, because they were like, you can't go if you don't have an agent out in LA as a 15-year-old.
Right.
And
Were you actually thinking that you'd stay by yourself, or were you hoping?
no, my mom came out with me, and she switched out every other week with someone named Chrissy, who had babysat my brother and I since we were 6 and 4. So she's like my big sister, and it was wonderful to get to be with her there too. And then, yeah. And I was just auditioning.
So I just think we should take a slight break or sidebar. Adolescence, your mom told me that you actually told her that if you didn't go to LA, you would die.
You're right.
And so, so I want you to know
Thanks,
that,
Mom.
but I want you to know that when you're an adolescent, you are boiling and you are freezing. You are not warm or you are not cool, and you hate everyone or love everyone.
Right.
These intense feelings are actually biological. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that modulates things and talks about strategy, so if I can't go now, I can go later, that doesn't kick in to talk to the rest of your brain. And it's one of the reasons Hertz waits until you're 25 to rent you a car. That prefrontal cortex and those intense feelings. Now, you have to have the right mom and dad, because they listen to you and they didn't say, oh, this is just a mood or this is just a feeling, don't be ridiculous, we live in Arizona, keep doing, youth theater.
I mean, they could have.
Right, but they got it. Somehow they got
Yeah.
it. So it would be wonderful to think, oh, you go off to LA and it's a miracle. All of a sudden you get a part.
Right.
And I don't think that's what happened.
No. No, I auditioned for a few months. I mean, really, I did a reality search competition show called In Search of the Partridge Family on VH1. I know you've all seen it, and it's your favorite show, and I'm really grateful that you watched it. So I did do that within the first year of being out there because none of the auditions were really working, and then I ended up doing my first movie when I was 17.
And what was that?
Super bad.
But from 15 to 17, I can't imagine there wasn't a lot of rejection.
There was.
A lot of, auditions. Yeah. And yet, where does the perseverance, the resilience, because I think the hard part for people is, if you're anxious, you're just a worrywart, you crumble all the time. You have anxiety that clearly is related to separation or about the future, performance, and worry, but yet you don't get the part and you say, okay, I'll go for the next audition. Where does that come from?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think one is trusting your instincts and your gut, although I think gut and instincts are a bit different because sometimes my instincts tell me that I need to scream at the top of my lungs and run out of the room, and my gut calms me down.
Okay.
I think that, knowing that this was the thing that I loved the most and that this was where I don't know how that was what happened within me, but it hasn't proven me wrong yet, even though sometimes I'm like, I definitely need to quit because I totally suck. And then the people around you. Like you said, you need to have the right parents, you need to have friends around you, you need people that love you no matter if you are an absolute failure and have lost everything or have the most success and everyone's like, you're the greatest. It doesn't matter to them because life isn't really about that. It is about those connections and that relationship. So I was so grateful and so lucky to have that. That would have been, your gut can tell you anything. If you don't have people around you to support you and help you, you're screwed.
Good news, the gut cells, morphologically the same as your brain cells. So when people say trust your gut, okay?
But the brain cells tell me a lot of
things.
stuff.
Yeah, okay, we'll balance them out. So,
sorry, oh God, you heard it too. I just got over a cough, or a cold, I mean. The cough is gross.
So let's talk about the Child Mind Institute video you did for #MyYoungerSelf, with 40 other celebrities talking about their mental health and learning disorder struggle and success. You said that you feel things more deeply, and you think that's because of your anxiety. So you have been in lots of different movies and played varied characters. I was thinking of Skeeter, a Southern writer or wannabe journalist in the South. This drug addict, traumatized woman in Maniac, an actress in La La Land. And yet you're very believable, or the carefree, talk about carefree, bold high school student in Easy A. Mm-hmm. I mean, the one that we all want to be. Do you mean like, screw you to everyone, I'm going to do what I want to do. Do you think your anxiety or your deep feelings helps you with the preparation of those roles?
Absolutely, oh my God, it's invaluable.
So how does that work for you?
Well, along with my belief that we're smarter. We're just so smart, us anxious people.
Certainly more sensitive, right?
More sensitive. I also believe that there's a lot of empathy when you've struggled a lot internally. There's a tendency to want to understand how people around you work or what's going on internally with them, which is great for characters. It's great to be able to kind of dig into who these people are, what their struggles are, what their secrets are, and how they present themselves is not always how they feel inside. And that's a great gift as an actor to get to do that because you find so many parts within yourself that you get to then basically like explore and exercise on a daily basis at work. And it's been invaluable.
We'll stick with Easy A for a second. You didn't go to high school.
Correct.
And yet you seem to, at least you got the TV high school experience in that, where everyone's saying everyone's so good looking and everyone's so mean and also not so nice. But where did you grab that from? Because I read somewhere that you actually used a lot of the rejection that you got when you first got to Hollywood when you did La La Land. But where did you get the high school experience from? Or what it would be like to be a high school student?
I mean, I think it's pretty, like whether you went to a high school, I went for one semester to high school, I went to middle school a bit, for a year. And I think it's pretty clear what that experience feels like. That everyone is, as you were saying, it's very extreme. And people are trying on a lot of different personas, and they're learning who they are. And I don't know. I don't know that the high school part of it was as, challenging to me as kind of, the arc that she goes on. But I think that a lot of the world, like, I know the world isn't high school, but like, isn't the world kind of high school?
For some of us.
Like forever.
Some of us seem to be stuck there, right?
But I mean, like the outside opinion, or like this, I hate you, but I don't know you, and I don't know how you work internally, but I choose to hate you because you're this, you're that, or like, I love you, you're amazing, and I still don't really know you. Like, it's just kind of high school-ish, still.
Back to perseverance.
Is that me?
Yeah, no, it's very honest.
I'll go home and worry about this.
Perseverance. You want a part, and lots of actresses want the part, but you seem to go the extra mile. Is that related to your, is that part of the anxiety that you have to get it? So, for instance, you wanted to be in The Help. You don't have a Southern accent. You don't know anything about Jackson, Mississippi, and the white ladies who had black help. But something about that. You read the book, or how did you decide that you wanted that so much that you went after it?
Well, that one, there's other ones that are a bit more I went after.
Okay.
That one I sat with Tate, the director, and we had so much fun, and he was like, "You want to do it?" And that was kind of how that one went,
Okay.
which was great. I'm very lucky. But no, when it comes to something that if I can feel, again, that gut instinct that one part is meant like Easy A, I went insane, and I made sure I was the first person into audition, period. And then I just sort of like berated them until they decided that I could do it. Because that, I just felt that it was meant to be, and it had to happen. Of course, that's not always correct in every situation.
But is that what you do sometimes?
Yeah. If I really feel that it's meant to be. But I also have gotten really good at letting things go. I've gotten, much, much better at realizing that, and that's probably also just maturity, whether it's, relationships or parts or, certain attitudes or feelings within yourself. You learn to, I think, let it go and release it more easily than you do when you're young and you're really holding on to, this is how it's supposed to be.
The anxiety doesn't go away. You get to manage it.
No, it does not go away. I panicked this morning, y'all.
So what is it?
I wasn't expecting to, but I definitely did.
It was me. See, I thought you were making me anxious. I was making you anxious.
You were making me anxious.
But what tools do you use? And what do you still go to a mental health professional for?
Yes, I go to a therapist, and I meditate, and I talk to people very quickly now. I connect with people. Instead of isolating, I reach out. And I'm starting to do this, which is really scary for me, but very healing, to try to just talk about it and own it and realize that this is something that is part of me, but it is not who I am. And if that can help anybody that knows that it's part of them, but it's not who they are. I mean, it's like he was saying before, 17 million kids are affected by something like this, and that's a lot.
Right.
And I am really, if I can do anything to say like, hey, it's me, I get it, and I'm there with you, and you can still get out there and achieve dreams and form really great relationships and connections, and I hope I am able to do that.
So self-care,
Yes.
sleep, I would imagine.
I mean,
But the other thing is that you seem
working on it.
remarkably busy. No, I'm
Yeah,
being very serious.
I know.
I was looking into how many. You're doing a music video. Do you mean I said let's have lunch afterwards? No, I got to go for a dance rehearsal. I mean, you are keeping a tight schedule. Does that help your manage your anxiety, or does it make it worse? Or how
I
do you
think
keep
staying busy definitely is helpful, because my mind has a tendency when I'm not doing much it needs an outlet, and so it can turn in on itself, and the outlet can be me and
start
what
spinning?
Exactly, I can spin. So, but much better as time has gone on. It's much, now that I have more tools, I don't need to be, the punching bag. But yeah, I definitely find being busy and with a creative endeavor,
Right.
not just anything, but something creative, an outlet like that is when I'm happiest.
And it doesn't make a difference whether it's a movie or, I mean, you did a Broadway show. I really started to look. I thought, oh my goodness, you were singing in cabaret.
Yeah.
And that's every night again. That's going on every night.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference what the medium is. It's the creativity and it's the community around you.
For sure, absolutely, yeah. It can be exhausting, and the no sleep does turn me into a bit of a,
Does that make you more anxious?
Oh yeah. Not sleeping is my kryptonite for sure, but that's got to be everybody.
And well, I think, frankly, for anxious people, for anybody who has an Achilles heel, if you take away sleep or you take away food for too long or you put them under too much stress, it's like how much stress can your brain tolerate? You'll start seeing the symptoms.
Yeah.
What kind of tools? You said meditation. Do you do mindfulness? What do you do?
TM.
And you do it every day?
I've been trying to do it every
it's
day,
hard.
but I went through a pocket of not doing it as frequently as I should. But yes, I do it I did it right before I came here.
And the big question that everyone hesitates about, and you don't have to answer, medication. I'm sure that from the very earliest time, someone was telling you, take some medication for this. Be very, not a tranquilizer, not Valium or Xanax, but maybe a Prozac-like drug that would give you more. And you fought that?
I did.
Why was that?
I think that it scared me that I would be in some way not as effective or in touch with my emotions, that it was going to numb me out, and obviously that's not true.
Right.
And it is so helpful for so many people. So I mean, I think that the stigma around medication for people who are going through things like this is horrible, because it can be absolutely
life-saving.
Life-saving.
Right.
Yeah. And
I think most people, there's so many myths about it, and yet we are so careful about it at the Child Mind Institute that we don't accept money from the pharmaceutical industry, and we'll take it a step further. We don't let drug reps come on the ground. So we actually buy our own pizza and Post-its and pens. But inevitably, no, they send some attractive, charismatic person, and somehow the next thing you know, you're writing the prescription for what they want you to write instead of for what you know is the right thing.
Yeah.
But I think it reassures parents that if a child does need medicine,
Yes.
you're giving them the medicine that you know works best, or the medicine that's been around the longest.
And of course, there's an argument about overprescription in our country, which I completely understand and see. But I think, on a case-by-case basis, it of course can be life-saving and life-changing.
Social media.
Yes.
So in our we have a new children's mental health report that just came out, and in fact, it's quoted today in the New York Times. Perry Klass did this great article about what to do when you have a child with an anxiety disorder. But one of the things we found in our mental health report was that people who are more socially engaged and feel emotionally attached to social engagement are more likely to have anxiety symptoms. And it seems like almost every child or every teenager in the United States is involved somehow in social media. And yet you have made a decision to have no presence or no social media presence. Why have you decided to do that?
I mean,
is it because of...
I think that would would send me into a spin.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that that influx of opinion and information, and the idea that I could post something and then in the middle of the night regret what I posted or want to delete. Everything is so. I already need to be out there a lot from my job, and I figure that's enough of me. I don't need to be doing constant updates or getting constant feedback on who I am, I guess.
So what did you do? I'm just curious. Every actor talks about the rejection of, the reviews. So when you got the Academy Award, could you hold on to that great feeling, or were you worried about the next performance?
I guess I see failure and achievement as two sides of the same coin, in that it's all transient. So a moment like that is amazing and is so surreal and mind-blowing, but then you have to wake up the next day and go back to work. Right. And the same thing with failure. It feels like the end of the world, and then you get up the next day and you go back to work and life changes again. So it's not that I'm not incredibly grateful and happy about the things that have gone well, but I'm equally the things that have gone badly or the mistakes I've made are just as valuable moments like that.
So has your anxiety, even now or in the past, prevented you from doing something that you really wanted to do? Because, for instance, if you Whoopi Goldberg will talk about the fact that her anxiety can get so bad she won't get on an airplane. You know, she'll take a bus across in hours and days longer. Have you ever found yourself in that position where you want to do something and the monster just is too loud or too big?
Sharing, a lot of sharing, like speaking about certain issues or things, or you know, making mistakes is a very big trigger fear for me. So I would like to be more outspoken about a lot of things, but it doesn't. And I know I will learn to be if that's appropriate for me. But it's that's been a big challenge for me.
So what's next? Just quickly. Besides a
Well, we're
music,
gonna walk down this.
let's see. Besides a music video with Paul McCartney, which I think is totally cool,
I
but
don't think you're supposed to announce.
okay. What else is it? You tell me what's next then. Okay.
We're making another Zombieland,
Okay.
so I'm gonna do that next. And I don't know.
So
I don't know yet.
I think you need a take home, by the way. You're all supposed to learn something from this. It's like continuing medical.
You guys learn any of
No, wait,
anything?
continuing medical education credit. 1 out of 5 kids in America has a mental health disorder. The most common mental health disorder are anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders are by far the secret or the silent disorder, because all the thoughts are inside your head until you have the panic attack or until you refuse to go to school. You are keeping this in your head, versus the disruptive kids, the ADHD kids, who are making a lot of noise, and so you pay attention. And the thing that you should also remember, these are gateway disorders. Anxiety in childhood leads you to have higher risk of panic disorder when you get older. It makes it more likely, if you have generalized anxiety disorder, to have depression when you get older. It can come along as a partner to things like ADD. Without hyperactivity, you can have anxiety. But the important part are they are not only real, they're very common, but they're very treatable. And I think the other thing I want to tell you is that I started off by saying everyone knows and loves one of these kids. Well, I think that everyone here now feels like they know and love you. And I can tell you at the Child Mind Institute, we're particularly proud of you for your courage, for your honesty, and for your concern about a whole bunch of other people who are struggling and who you want to seem to help get through that tunnel. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It went faster than you